今天是 National Awkward Moment Day。那说到尴尬的场面，在面试中、简报或者会议中，我的经验非常的丰富。但也因为这些经验，我也学到了很多。那今天让我跟 Nick 分享一些我们的 awkward moments， 也同时分享一些该如何化解尴尬的小技巧。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管双语沟通力的 podcast。我们希望带给大家最实用的沟通工具，包括了成功人士对全球市场的分享、职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。Hi, I'm Sherry, founder of Executive Plus. As a language trainer and certified coach, I've trained hundreds of managers from Fortune 500 companies such as Dior, Google, Deloitte, and Yahoo.
And I'm Nick, Director of Communication Strategy at Presentality.I've helped startups raise millions of US dollars in funding and train the executives of publicly listed companies to present on the global stage.
Welcome to the Executive Plus podcast,
where you can take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everyone, welcome back to Executive Plus podcast episode 54. Today is National Awkward Moments Day.Now, to prepare for this episode, Sherry asked me to think back about all the awkward moments that I've had in my career. Because she was able to jot down, I don't know, like 50 almost immediately.
I have too many awkward stories.
You're too excited about this. 我觉得我的人生好失败。
结果 Nick, it took him like 2 weeks.To think about awkward moments.
I'm really good at just blocking those out and just pretending that they never happened. And so when you're like, think about it, I'm like, no, I suppressed those too well. But I did manage to come up with a few. And so today, what we want to share with you guys is a few lessons that we learned from these really awkward moments in our lives or awkward moments in our careers, and how you can learn from our mistakes or our really awkward moments.
没错，今天想就是希望能透过我们的痛苦的经验，能够让大家有一些很正面的 takeaway。那希望也可以顺便让大家都知道说，其实有很多方式是可以去化解，或者是基本上可以去 prevent 这些 awkward moments.
So the first kind of lesson that we want to learn is something that I think happens to you all the time. You have a lot of history with technology breaking while you're giving presentations or talks.
我觉得那个电器跟我好像这磁场不太合。From college, 我在大学的时候，我选修的系，它的 requirement 是你每一个学期一定要做大概超过 I don't know, like 20 presentation. 所以我在每一节课我都常常要做 presentation. 那我还记得有一次是我的会计的课，而且呢是我的 final presentation， 它是占我的那个 final grade 大概 30%。结果呢我一上台，其他人都没有问题，我一上台电脑坏了。我还记得有一次是我的那个 USB flash drive 里面的档案全部都坏了， I cannot retrieve any files。 有一次还是，而且电脑坏的那一次呢，我本来是用一个，那个时候还有一个叫做 transparency projector, right?
Yeah.
我不知道大家有没有看过那个东西，但是在美国的学校以前是常用的，就是你要用那种透明的纸嘛，你要印东西上去或你写东西上去。那个时候他就 OK， 老师就搬出来这个 transparency projector 给我用， OK， 我也准备咯，我也准备了该用的东西，结果那个东西也坏了。So basically everything broke。 所以你知道唯一有用的东西是什么？就是人。 It's me. I'm the one that's actually useful at that moment. So, and good thing is that I prepared to death.I memorized everything from that presentation. So I kind of saved it in a way. I mean, it was really awkward. It was completely awkward. But in order to kind of overcome that situation, you're just gonna have to really, really, really prepare it. 因为 slides 这些东西只是你的 support， 他们不是重点。所以我自从那一次之后，我的 USB 我都带3个。 like back up for that. And I always find like a plan B and C in that kind of situation.
Yeah, and even up until like right before the pandemic situation, I was with you when you had to go give a speech and you ran into the exact same problems. I think they put up the wrong PowerPoint and then they found the right PowerPoint and then the computer that like nothing to do with you at all. But the entire venue's like technical capabilities died while you were on stage.
Okay. 有一个 tip 就是如果人家安排你做 presentation, 你千万不要最后一个。因为那个时候你的 computer 都会过热。Okay, that's another tip. That's besides this. But yes, 那一次主办单位帮我 upload 错的 presentation slides. 所以当他们找到新的时候 the computer completely died. It was just overheated. I'm the last one to go. So I was like, all right, here it goes again. But luckily, 那个时候我已经非常多类似的经验，所以我直接拿到麦克风就直接跟班上的人说 Okay, everyone look at me now. Let's talk. So I started this interaction with the audience. I asked them questions. They asked me questions. And yeah, that's kind of the only way I solved it. And of course, I was prepped and I know exactly what I wanted to talk about. So I kind of saved it.
And I think what you were talking about right at the end, the preparation, is what makes the key difference. And for presentality, one of the things that we constantly talk to startup founders about when they're ready to go pitch VCs is you should be able to talk about your company with absolutely no PowerPoint slides. And the reason for that is, one, it's a lot more compelling when a founder can tell his story and doesn't require a PowerPoint to back him up.
Yeah.
But two is, the reality is, if the technology goes down, VCs are busy. You may not re-get that meeting. You may not be able to reschedule. You should be able to just completely give that talk with no PowerPoint. If you really need to show something visual, you should be able to walk over to a whiteboard and maybe explain something or draw it out. You shouldn't rely on your PowerPoint, and too many people do. They're there to narrate a PowerPoint, where it should be the opposite. A PowerPoint should be there to back you up. And that's actually even happened to my business partner, Andrew, where when he was working for a VC, everyone on the team was required to research a few companies that the VCs will go visit when they fly over to the US. And during that meeting, when everyone's talking about the companies they researched, the projector died. And every single person, except for Andrew, was unable to talk about their companies because they expected the slides to explain everything. They had all the information there. But because Andrew was someone who very much believed in prep, all he did is he walked over to a whiteboard and he said, okay, company one, here's what they do, here's what you need to know. And he knew all of that because he had prepared beforehand.
Right. So I think it actually translates into something really important is that当你要做一个简报的时候，尤其是一个非常重要的一个简报，你在做 preparation 的时候，一定你要从我到底要说什么，什么样是重点，先从那边开始，最后你再去想你的 PowerPoint slides 上面要放什么。I think it has to be in order, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people actually started off by doing the PowerPoint slides.
Right.
So they kind of, they actually do their speech based on their PowerPoint slides.
Yeah, they just prepare in reverse.
Yeah, exactly. So 那个 order 我觉得蛮重要的. Yeah. So I think definitely prepared and know it by heart. Yeah.
Yeah, preparation always matters, especially when you're going to go talk to someone if you have foreign clients. Getting key pieces of information, but also getting names correct. And I actually remember there was another story you told me where a name caused you a bit of problem during an interview, yeah?
Exactly. But at that time, I was at Parsons. I'm not sure if I graduated. 但是那个时候你在 fashion 的学校的时候，你就会不停的去很多的品牌做 interview， 因为你那个时候一定要 internship。那 internship 其实在 fashion 界很多都是 free, you don't get paid. 所以那个时候到后来，我已经去了大概我数不清的 interview， 但是因为可能那个时候我的心态不太对，就是我觉得you know what, it's not paid, I don't care, I'm just gonna go, I'm pretty awesome, they're gonna want me anyway. 所以完全没有准备。那这个正好是一个新的，当时是一个新的 brand， 然后它是应该是从意大利来的一个 brand。You know what？ 我完全不知道该怎么样 pronounce 他们的名字，所以完全不知道该怎么讲。I think the name is Alexandro Delacqua。I think now I know， 我永远忘不掉这个名字。但是那个时候一边 interview 的时候，我想说 crap， 我真的讲不出他的名字，所以我的 interviewer he kind of had to remind me so many times.
Shows how passionate you are about the company.
I'm fantastic. 然后那个时候我就觉得 oh crap, I'm definitely not getting this job. And I felt really bad. I mean, paid or not paid, 我觉得你的心态一定要非常的正确，就是不管怎么样，不管他是怎么样，薪资多少的一个 position， 你一定要准备充足，要不然你真的是对对方是很不礼貌的。
Yeah, and the reality is with YouTube now or Google, there's plenty of ways to find how to pronounce someone's name.
Yeah, so, definitely prepared every aspect of your interview or your presentation. So let's get to the second key takeaway. And now I'm going to interview Nick. Finally, after 2 weeks of unearthing.
Came up with an idea.
So what do you have for us today, Nick?
The thing that I want to share with people today is, as someone who has to give presentations quite often, whether it's running workshops or, on a public stage to talk about what I do, you will often run into moments where it's very clear the moment that you walk into a room or step on stage that the audience is not happy that you're there. Mm-hmm. And this may be something in your control, it may be something not. Maybe you have a reputation, or maybe just the way that things got set up. The audience is not really warm to you coming in the door. And I've had not recent, but within the last few years, I had a situation where this happened to me, where sometimes I get asked to go onto university campuses during the summer vacation and teach workshops to the professors about either how I teach presentation, or previously when I was teaching inside universities, how I use authentic English materials to teach class. And there was one instance of that where as soon as I walked in the room, I could tell that something wasn't right. Everyone was pretty cold. They were looking at me awkwardly. And it really came down to is every professor in that room was much older than I am. Mm-hmm. So they had much more experience than I was. And I guess the way that my workshop had got set up was that I was there to teach them something. And they weren't happy about it.
They're like, 你是谁?
Yeah, like, who am I? Just because I'm a white guy, I'm gonna come in and tell them how to use English materials. And it created a really awkward moment. Like when I'm setting up and getting ready, usually I chit-chat, I'll talk to people in the workshop. But every time I ask a question, it'd get like one word answer from like one person back. And it was just really weird. Now, luckily, I had just gone through a facilitation training, where one of the questions they talk about is what happens when you go to facilitate a company and only the CEO or management wants it and everyone else in the room is upset that you got called in to fix their company problems. And just how you break down that barrier. And because I had gone through that training and I identified that moment, I was able to use a technique. And what I did is, because I was supposed to be standing on stage, took a chair and I got off the stage and I sat down in front of them. And essentially, as I said, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to teach you anything. Most of you have more experience or have been doing this longer than I ever did. But what I want to share with you today is just a few things that I picked up over the years that worked really well for me and a few things that didn't. And I'd be really happy if you guys would share with me what has been working and not in your classroom. And maybe we can talk about how to do things better together. And the moment that I sat down in front of them and I just was honest about, I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm just here to share. The environment in the room just completely switched. Like now I was just one of them. And when I was sharing things, they would ask me questions about like how to do that, how to integrate it into their classrooms, what kind of materials do they need. And it wasn't me going, I'm really good at this, you should listen to me. It worked out way better.
So I think one thing that you did, which I think it definitely isn't the easiest, is that you were able to read the room really, really quickly and very early on. 所以这个我觉得真的也是要有一些经验. And you change your method very quickly and early on. Once you read the room, you're like, all right, this is something weird going on. And you're able to kind of just change and adapt. So I think that saved everything very quickly. And I think one thing that you also did is that 你把那个空间变成不是教学，好像你去教，而是一个分享的空间, right? Like a sharing space for everyone.
And I've actually seen very recently the opposite of someone do that, where I was at an event and there was a young entrepreneur that they invited to come speak.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there. And talk about his experience. And it very quickly from people going, oh, wow, this is, really interesting that such a young entrepreneur has built a business. And he got on stage and kind of acted like he should tell people what to do, like how to act, how to feel. And you could just watch the room switch from the, oh, wow, this is interesting, to why are you the person to be telling me how to do things? And that was one of the situations where they didn't read the room and they didn't turn it into, it's like the expectations were broken and they didn't adjust properly.
He did not know his audience.
Yeah, he really didn't.
He did not know. All the audience have so much more experience in that field, and he did not think about that.
Yeah.
所以我觉得真的了解，你要先了解你的 audience, 你的听众，你的观众到底是谁，你才能够去 break down 这个 barrier. So I think both is really important.
Yeah, and part of that is also being authentic in who you are. One thing we often teach at Presentality is too many Taiwanese will go on stage and begin their presentation by apologizing. Like, oh, I'm so sorry, my English is not that great, or oh, I'm so sorry, I'm not a great presenter. And we always recommend that you don't do that. There's nothing to be sorry for. You go up there and present. But there are cases where you can use either an awkward feeling or an awkward moment and call it out, and then do what I did with the teachers. You can break down a barrier. You can break down the distance between you and the audience by kind of being honest. And a good example of this is my other business partner, Zona. Back when she was in the academic world, she was off in, I want to say France, somewhere in Europe, giving her first international presentation. And she was super nervous. She had never had to present on an international stage. And she prepped over and over again, and she just felt it was awkward and she was worried. So at the very beginning of her presentation, she just set it up where she got on stage and said, I'm really sorry, English is not my native language, so if I put my mouth on my foot or my foot in my mouth, I don't remember the phrase. I hope that you guys can just bear with me. And by making a joke, not just apologizing, but making a joke, she actually broke the barrier between her and the audience. They laughed, and all that tension in the room just left.
Right.
And she was able to give her presentation. But rather than up there and stumble and feel awkward, she just found a moment to make a connection. And that really worked to her advantage.
So speaking of being true to yourself, 其实我也有一个蛮 awkward 的 story. 那我当时其实我就是没有非常的了解自己当时的状况。那我又是去了一个 interview. 那个 interview 我当时在 Burberry 工作，那是一个 sales 的 position。那当时有另外一个人到我们的公司，然后他假装他是客人，所以他就算是发掘吧，他挖掘嘛 ，like scouted me. He scouted me for a different brand. 所以有另外一个鞋子的品牌，当时要开店了。那他们的很多 investor 他们都在找新的人能够到他们店，所以那个时候我就被他找去，然后我就 OK， 那我心里觉得蛮开心的，居然有人发掘我的特质吧，所以我自己只是照了这一点，只是 just because of that I went to that interview， 但 但是其实我并没有那么想要继续当 sales。那个时候其实我已经想要找另外一种工作了。So I kind of knew that I don't want to be sales, but I went just because I felt good that somebody scouted me. You know, I felt kind of like in, you know, oh,
I'm so popular.
I'm so good. 所以那个时候我就去了。那第二个 interview 的时候，他其实就所有的 investor 都在那边。我还记得坐了一排人。然后呢，而且那个时候听说了，其中一个 investor 还是 Natalie Portman， 然后我就觉得说it's such a special opportunity. You know, I will kill my interview, no problem. Yeah. So I walked in with my heels and everything. 然后他们开始问问题了，一个一个问。那当然他们在问问题的当中，他们就可以听得到，也感受得到，其实我对 sales 的 position 其实是没有兴趣的。我其实是想要寻找另外一条路。他们那时候也感受到这种，他们也会觉得很 confusing， 所以很快的他就叫我离开了。They just actually asked me to leave. I've never been asked to leave from an interview before. 所以这个真的对我来讲，那个时候是觉得我自己觉得 Oh my God, 到底发生什么事情，超级尴尬。Like I had no idea what happened. But it wasn't until later that I was like, all right, yeah, you know what? That position is just not right for me. 那如果我当时be true to myself and just tell them that, be honest and be like, you know what, the sales position is not something that I can see myself in. Is if there's any other position opening up in the company, I would love you to consider me. 如果我当时就是非常的对自己很真实，然后 be honest about it, 我可能可以 reverse 这个 situation. But at the time, I didn't.
Yeah, but this is also like an audience can tell.Yeah, when you're being honest. And you hear the phrase like fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
But the reality is if you don't believe it at all,
exactly.
Fake it till you make it is usually that standpoint of if you don't feel you're there yet, just pretend that you're there yet. But it also means that if that's not what you want to do, people can tell.
Exactly. Yeah. 其实所有的人都是非常聪明的。They can detect from one word or your facial expression or your tone of voice or the way you walk. 所以其实真的 be really true to yourself and then, you know, 我觉得 fake it till you make it, 这个 it really depends on what it is. Yeah. I wouldn't say that's like true to all situation. Yeah.
Well, we hope that by sharing all these kind of awkward moments and stories that the lessons that we're trying to get through you, whether it comes to preparation is really key, always be prepared for technology to go against you, or that idea of breaking a barrier between your audience and understanding that the audience sees you for who you are. So building that connection with them can remove a lot of this awkwardness. Break that barrier. Have a discussion with them as people. And very often, the awkward moments will dissipate.
没错，所以真的是真心的去准备，不管你是要到什么样的场合，不管它是多短，它是多重要的，我觉得还是你要诚心的去准备 presentation, meeting or interview， 而了解你 audience， 了解你的听众、你的观众，然后你才能够去 break down 那个 barrier。那最后呢，就是 be true to yourself， 你要很真诚的对待自己，让你也非常要很诚实的能够对待对方。其实一点点的那种 hesitation。或者你自己不太确认自己的那种感觉，其实对方都很容易能够听得出来，也可以看得出来的。
We hope on this National Awkward Moment Day, you don't have any weird awkward moment, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
如果你喜欢我们的 podcast， 欢迎来追踪我们的主管英文 Executive Plus 的 Facebook。那也可以写信到我们的信箱 yourcareerplus@gmail.com